Teofimo Lopez is no longer the unified world lightweight champion. He loses his belts on a 12-round split decision to George Kambosos. Where did it all go wrong? Well, we can start off with overconfidence and believing in your own hype. Because some fighters will say they're going to knock out their opponent in a round. They'll say it's going to be an easy fight. The guy's not on my level. But a lot of the time it's just to sell the fight. Other times it's a psychological warfare tactic. But in some instances, the fighter genuinely believes that it's going to be a one-round knockout. The fighter genuinely believes that he doesn't need to have any type of respect for his opponent. And that was the case here with Lopez against Kambosos. And you could see from the way he approached the first round alone. When he fought Lomachenko, yeah, he had some choice words for Lomachenko in the run-up to the fight that weren't exactly complimentary. But when he got in the ring, you could see that he had a certain level of respect for Lomachenko's ability. Because everything was measured and careful behind the jab. He was assertive, but he weren't reckless. Whereas with Kambosos, he came out swinging from the fences from the opening bell. There was no respect there. He believed in his own hype, partly because of the Lomachenko win, but also because of the kind of character he is and the kind of character his dad is, who really functioned as little more than a cheerleader in the run-up to this fight and in between rounds. So Lopez gets dropped towards the end of the first round, which he was winning, but he gets dropped quite heavily by a right hand, and he got cracked by that right hand repeatedly in the early rounds especially. He was standing straight up, very little head movement there, in range of Kambosos' overhand right, and he got hit repeatedly over and over again, got marked up in the early rounds from it. But as I say, gets dropped in the first round, goes back to his corner, and you're hoping for some clear, concise advice from your corner in a moment like that. But instead, his dad says, calm down. Okay, you're thinking, this is good. And then after telling him to calm down, he says, what the hell are you doing? You need to knock him out. Go there and take it to him. Now, obviously, you can apply pressure and be aggressive, but be inwardly calm while you're doing it. In fact, that's ideal. But the reason I would say that what his dad presented was mixed messages is because of the way he delivered the message. He was very animated and angry and frustrated himself. And he was, conveying the message to Teofimo in that way. So you're confusing the fighter. 1 second you're telling him be calm, and then you're all animated saying, go and get him. What are you doing? Knock him out. What kind of technical advice is that? You didn't tell him what he did wrong in any kind of detailed way and what you should do in order to remedy your mistakes or capitalize on anything your opponent is doing. No, it's just simply take him out of there. What are you doing? Knock him out. I mean, terrible advice. And it was like that through at least the first few rounds, where Teo would go back to the corner after having lots of trouble in there, and his dad would just say, come on, step on the gas, knock him out. Well, maybe it's not that easy. Maybe you want to offer him some better advice, something more thoughtful, something more sophisticated than just knock him out. Maybe this guy is not someone who you can just walk through. Evidently he wasn't. So woefully inept by his dad in the corner. And Teo, he made a few adjustments in the fight. He wasn't getting caught with that right hand over the top. It took him several rounds to make the adjustment, but he started blocking the right hand over the top and seeing certain things that Kambosos was doing, even though he was largely being outboxed for the first half of the fight at least. Now, in the second half of the fight, Kambosos did tire somewhat, as well as Teo making a few adjustments here and there. But you always felt like Kambosos was the one in slight charge. It was a rough fight. It wasn't easy for Kambosos in there physically. He might have won the majority of the rounds, but it was physically quite a demanding fight because Teofimo Lopez is a strong guy, hits hard himself, and Kambosos showed a good chin, to be able to weather the storm and take what Teofimo Lopez had to offer by way of punching, power punches and what have you. But yeah, Kambosos did tire in the second half of the fight. He was fighting at a good pace. He, to me, had the faster hands and was the better combination puncher. Good footwork, back foot game. He was fluid and fast in there. And Teofimo Lopez had the look of a man who was embarrassed by the way things were going. And this again is what happens when you put too much pressure on yourself by acting like you're just going to knock this guy out in one round. You know, you need to give somebody more respect than that. So he wasn't just battling to try and win the fight. He was battling to try and make his prediction come true and wipe this guy out. You see it? So in his mind, it's not just enough to win the fight. I have to wipe this guy out in order to redeem myself, in order to vindicate myself in terms of the kind of fight I said it was going to be. This is what Teo's thinking in his head. So he was kind of embarrassed by the fact he's being clocked and he's being countered and he's being outmaneuvered and all this kind of thing. Anyway, Kambosos starts to slow down and tire in the second half of the fight. Lopez manages to drop him. I think it was the 10th? I believe it was the 10th. But then Kambosos gets up and on many people's cards wins the next 2 rounds. So hats off to Kambosos. He stuck in there. He prepared properly. He did what he had to do. And I don't want to take nothing away from Kambosos. But if Teofimo Lopez had been professional about this fight, if he'd have given the same respect to Kambosos, professional respect in the ring, never mind all the trash talk outside the ring, in the ring, if he'd given the same level of respect to Kambosos as he gave to Lomachenko, then I don't want to say he would have won the fight, but it would have been closer at the very least. And he wouldn't have been as humiliated as he was. Not like it was the most humiliating loss I've ever seen, but, you know, it was relatively humiliating. Especially given the fact that Kambosos was this big underdog and, you know, Lopez really didn't have much respect for him before the fight. Then there was the antics after the fight. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Lopez gate crashed the Kambosos post-fight interview and started saying that he won the fight 10 rounds to 2. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. I mean, we're not quite at Deontay Wilder levels of delusion, but we're not far off when he's saying stuff like that. If he came, you know, through in the post-fight interview and said, I thought I won the fight by 2 rounds or by a round, I wouldn't necessarily agree, but I'd say, okay, I've heard more ridiculous things than that. But when you come out and say, I won 10 rounds to 2, I mean, how can you justify that with a face as busted up as Teofimo's face? I mean, his face was a mask of blood by the end of the fight. And that wasn't a case of him getting cut in 1 round and in the rest of the fight, he was completely fresh-faced. No, he got marked up all the way through the fight. From the early rounds, he was picking up damage and then going on into the late rounds, picking up more and more damage. Now, Kambosos wasn't exactly fresh as a daisy himself. He picked up some facial damage too. But Teofimo Lopez's face marked up gradually throughout the fight because he was getting hit a lot. And that doesn't happen in a 10-2 fight. You know, you don't end up with a face like a margarita pizza when you've won the fight 10 rounds to 2. So, yeah, Teofimo Lopez, extremely delusional in a post-fight interview. And this was one of those rarities nowadays, it seems, in high-level fights, where the mandatory challenger doesn't sign a rematch clause. Praise the Lord. It's good that Kambosos can just sail off into the sunset now and doesn't need to fight Teofimo Lopez again. Now, if he wants to, he can, but he doesn't have to. And you know, all these people who say, I don't know what the issue is with mandatory challengers signing rematch clauses because they get more money. So, you know, it makes sense for them to sign a rematch clause. Okay, that is about the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Because Kambosos has the option to fight Teofimo Lopez again. He can fight him. What, you think Teofimo Lopez is going to turn down a rematch if he was offered a rematch by Kambosos? He's got the opportunity to do it. Yeah? All mandatory challengers who win have the opportunity, if they want to, they can offer the other guy, the former champion, a rematch immediately. Yeah? So how are they in any better position if they commit themselves to a rematch? They're not in any better position. You know, and certainly the fans are not in any better position, because at least now with Kambosos, and he was the IBF mandatory, he can fight Teofimo Lopez again if he wants, but he can also sail off into the sunset and fight somebody else. That's the great thing about the mandatories not having a rematch clause in the contract, is they have the option. They have the freedom to do what they want. So I'm glad that that's the case here with Kambosos. He doesn't have to fight Lopez again. And, the way Lopez was talking about Lomachenko being a sore loser, maybe he was a sore loser to some degree. Well, now Teofimo Lopez surely will get a taste of his own medicine or a taste of that kind of because look, it's one thing to complain about a guy being a sore loser. And then when you lose, you're magnanimous in defeat. But it's another thing entirely to complain about somebody else being a sore loser. And then when you lose, you're a sore loser as well. Come on. So, Teofimo, I think, is going to get maybe a taste of his own medicine, whereby he wouldn't fight Lomachenko in a rematch. And perhaps Kambosos will not fight Teofimo in a rematch right now. And there might be part of him that feels like he should, because some people are going to say it was a fluke or Teo underestimated him and whatever the case may be. So maybe his pride is saying, okay, let's fight him again. Let's fight him in Australia or whatever. But another side of him, and perhaps people in his team, will be saying, nah, man, this guy's disrespected you. You've just beat this guy fair and square in his backyard, and he can't even have the humility and the respect to say, well done. He's coming out saying that he won the fight 10-2. How on earth do you think you fighting in New York, and you're from New York, and this guy's coming all the way from Australia, he's going to get a robbery decision over you, a gift in front of your home? Like, how on earth could that possibly happen? Newsflash, it didn't happen. You got beat legitimately by a guy who was better prepared mentally, tactically, psychologically, and that's what it was. So, hats off to Kambosos. Great performance. I hope he doesn't fight Teofimo. I hope he, lays all doubts and arguments to bed by fighting Devin Haney. I hope that's the direction he goes in, because Devin Haney does have some type of claim to be WBC lightweight champion. I know Teofimo was calling himself undisputed, but, there is that Devin Haney situation. And by the way, Devin Haney was quick to kick him out while he was down. And I can't say I necessarily blame him, but I'm just saying that's what he did. He kicked the man while he was down, and he said that Teofimo Lopez is a fraud, or always was a fraud. So no love lost there. I would rather Kambosos go in that direction and fight Devin Haney. Get that fight. Let's see who's the best out of those two. And that will give us a proper undisputed. And Kambosos maybe can stay at a lightweight or whatever the case may be. Certainly Teofimo Lopez is apparently looking to move up. And that might actually be one reason why, even if he was offered a rematch by Kambosos, he perhaps possibly wouldn't take it. Because, again, he's talking about him being too big for the weight. And, they asked him after the fight, are you looking to move up to 140 pounds? And he said, yeah, they've been keeping me at lightweight. Who's been keeping him at lightweight? His team? His dad? Bob Arum? I mean, who exactly has been keeping him at lightweight when he says they? I'd like him to explain that, So anyway, let me know what you guys thought about it in the comments below. Shocking corner work by the dad. Inept, unprepared, unprofessional. And they had to learn the hard way. Kambosos, great performance. If they do have a rematch, do you guys see it going the same way? Perhaps Kambosos can fight even better in a rematch. Perhaps Teofimo Lopez can do better. Again, you guys let me know what you think.